New questions this morning about what prosecutors are learning from former associate of Congressman Matt Gaetz, Joel Greenberg. He is requesting a 90-day delay in his sentence so he can keep cooperating with federal prosecutors. Remember, that investigation into Greenberg sparked a separate one into Congressman Gaetz, in part involving whether he had a sexual relationship with a minor and paid for her to travel with him. Gaetz has not been charged with any crimes and has denied any wrongdoing. With me now is NBC's justice correspondent Pete Williams. Pete, can you give us some context here, specifically on the amount of time that Greenberg has been cooperating with prosecutors? Is there anything that you can read into that and what this request for a delay on sentencing might mean?
Sure. Remember, he pleaded guilty in May 17th. He'd already been cooperating at that point, and the government wanted to get his cooperation nailed down, so he pleaded guilty. They dropped a whole raft of charges against him. He did plead guilty to 6 counts. Now, they carry a mandatory minimum sentence of 12 years in prison, but there is a federal statute that allows prosecutors to seek relief from those mandatory minimums if someone offers substantial cooperation. So that's what's in it for Joel Greenberg. He wants to try to get down below that 12-year mandatory and get his sentence potentially reduced. On the other hand, it takes time. You might say, well, gee, 2 months of talking, what else is there to say? So he makes statements to the government, but then the government has to go verify them. It has to look at records. It has to potentially talk to witnesses. Maybe it has to bring them back into the grand jury. So it's not a matter of simply taking him at his word. That's not uncommon in these cases where people cooperate and then the government checks it out. They raise new questions. They come back. So both he and the government are asking the judge here for a 90-day extension. So basically to let him continue cooperating for 3 more months.
If both of those parties, in typical cases, Pete, make that request to the judge, is the judge typically, do we know, is there a pattern on what judges typically do in those situations when both the defendant and the prosecution are making the case?
Well, for sentencing delays, yes, they almost routinely grant them. There's no need, there's no reason the judge wouldn't. So there's no Speedy Trial Act issue here. He's already pleaded guilty. So, yes, the judge will almost certainly agree to this.
Pete Williams, live for us here in Washington. Pete, thank you much for that.